102, take 2.
Ah, the French developer, celebrated everywhere for their excellence. There is a French developer who became disenfranchised with big-budget AAA studios. These artists have banded together to create their own game, free from the shackles of focus groups and monetization. This game takes inspiration from classic RPGs of a premium vintage. These artists have brought forth
Cut.
What? Expedition 33 is a game I've had my eye on for a while. From the very first trailer, they showcased gorgeous art design, excellent music, exciting combat design, a fantastic premise, and a general sense of wonder that hooked me immediately. Later trailers would also show really nice character interactions and writing.
I just need the foot. Aha!
As time went on, this game just looked more and more promising. By the time the release date rolled around, my expectations were through the roof. Fortunately, once I started playing, I found myself having an absolutely incredible time. The game very much starts off on the right foot, taking you on a roller coaster of emotions while delivering some incredibly satisfying combat and exploration. I honestly couldn't believe how good this game was. It was like playing a classic in real time. I'll start with the gameplay. Expedition 33 takes clear inspiration from classic JRPGs in many ways, and from a gameplay perspective, this translates to exploring bespoke zones that are placed throughout an open map styled after those found in games like Final Fantasy VII. The open world is abstracted and scaled down to give you the feeling of traveling a large distance without actually having to spend all that time pressing forward on the left stick. There are critical path areas and optional side areas that you can tackle to get more items and XP, and some of these optional areas are filled with incredibly powerful enemies that you're better off saving for later, which is a nice touch and a fun throwback to old RPGs. Generally, the explorable zones are laid out similarly, having a critical path with side paths branching from it, allowing you to explore and collect new gear and find unique enemies to fight. There is no map or marker to tell you where you need to go when you're exploring these zones. I've seen people taking issue with this, saying they've been getting lost frequently while moving through the game, and while I feel bad that they had that experience, I will say I didn't have that issue. I explored each zone pretty thoroughly, and I always had a sense of where I had been and where I'd yet to go. And most of the time I could tell which way was the main path. Throughout these areas, there are plenty of enemies, most of whom are called Nevrons, walking around to be fought. Random encounters are one mechanic that Expedition 33 decided not to integrate, which I am strongly in favor of. There were one or two points in the last third of the game that felt a little long-winded, a couple zones that felt too long, or maybe poorly placed. So it's nice that many enemy encounters can be bypassed if you're just itching to get to the next area or see what happens next in the story. But for the most part, combat in this game is an absolute blast. Turn-based combat has been kind of out of style for a while in the AAA space, especially from one of its biggest progenitors, Square Enix. Though it would be pretty interesting if after this the next Final Fantasy was turn-based. On its face, the combat in this game reminds me of games like Persona or Metaphor, though I can't really comment too much on those similarities because I could never get into those types of games myself. I just wasn't into the style and general vibe. But Expedition 33's combat is stellar. Each member of the party is completely unique in their combat styles and abilities, and much like those classic RPGs, each character has a base attack and a sort of mana gauge that builds up to allow you to use more powerful abilities. And honestly, the options you have for combat strategy is kind of staggering. Every character has so many abilities with so many different kinds of effects, from dealing damage to applying debuffs, which can then be capitalized on by another character's ability, or changing stances, or building up a stagger meter. There is seriously a ton of depth to this combat. And that's before we even get into Pictos and Luminas. Now, I'll admit this was my one point of worry before the game came out. I saw a game overview video in which they said there would be hundreds of passive effects, or Lumina. This seemed very daunting and possibly tedious. And it can be, but ultimately it was more manageable than I expected, and there are very few Lumina that seem pointless. The basic idea is that Pictos are passive effects of which you can equip 3 at a time. Once you complete 4 battles with a Pictos equipped, it creates a Lumina with the same effect. And Luminas can be equipped by everyone simultaneously, with the limitation being Lumina points, which will increase with levels as well as item pickups. The aforementioned Pictos also give stat boosts, which can be easily overlooked. These stat boosts are not given with Luminas and are exclusive to the equipped Pictos, and some of them can be very helpful. But we're getting into the weeds a bit here. The point is, there's a lot of these passive abilities, and they allow you to really customize your party and play the game in a ton of different ways. But one of the major aspects of the combat I haven't touched on yet is how the developer Sandfall has made turn-based combat a little more active. The vast majority of attacks from enemies can be either dodged or parried, and the way they've implemented this is kind of genius. The game does encourage and lean on being able to dodge or parry, but perfection is not necessary like it would be in, say, Sekiro. Parrying has a pretty tight window, but if you're not confident in your ability or you just don't know a particular enemy's patterns yet, you can choose to dodge instead. The window for dodging is more forgiving, and if you get a perfect dodge, that indicates to you that a parry would have worked in that window. It's a great way of easing you into the parry, and the reward for parrying is fantastic because if you parry a full combo from an enemy, you will automatically perform a counterattack for huge damage, and it's satisfying as hell. Over time, the game introduces new kinds of attacks from enemies and methods of countering them, as well as new abilities for the player. The combat is just really detailed and well thought out. It continues to be fun even after completing the game and moving into the post-game, which is surprisingly extensive in and of itself. If you want bang for your buck, you'll definitely get it with Expedition 33, especially since they priced the game at $50, whereas most AAA games these days are $70, and it seems to be increasing over time. And even if this game had a completely forgettable story, it would still be worth the price of admission for the gameplay alone. And fortunately, it pulls its weight in the narrative department as well. Now, I must admit, when everything was said and done, I wasn't as head over heels about this game's story as many others seemed to be, or even as much as I thought I would be at the beginning. You see, to me, the first act of this game is borderline perfect. Really great characters, emotional highs and lows, amazing naturalistic writing and performances, and my expectations were constantly subverted in the most enjoyable way. Every time I would get settled in and think, okay, I know what to expect. I've played a video game before. Sandfall would introduce some incredible character moment that would have me laughing my ass off or grinning from ear to ear.
They must be Gestrels. They're cute, but they're idiots.
Oh, fuck.
And for the record, Charlie Cox's performance as Gustav absolutely floored me. He was just such a believable and relatable character. The rest of the cast also does an excellent job, but I think Gustav was just on another level. I even enjoyed reading in this game. A lot of times video game text is really perfunctory and uninteresting to read, but I talked to every NPC I found in this game, and almost all of them had a fun personality or funny quirk to them. There are journals left by previous expeditions as well, and the vast majority of these are not only well written, but well voice acted, at least from the ones I've found. So major props to the writing team and the voice actors in this game. All this is to say, I was riding high in the first act. After that point though, I started to enjoy it less. It kind of felt like as the game went on, the characters in the general narrative lost their personality a bit. Not completely, mind you, there are still some great character moments in the latter half that are fantastic, and even some laugh out loud moments.
Out of the question. I will never join you again.
There will be a lot of fighting, though.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's true.
There will be a lot of fighting.
Exactly.
Count me in then.
Good.
But overall, the game seemed to make a shift from having all this personality to becoming more of a straight-laced fantasy drama, with the main characters for the most part getting caught up in awe and consternation over the obstacles and tribulations that face them. There was just a bit too much of the party reacting stoically to a big bad enemy, or wrestling with their plights in very familiar ways. I would have liked to see more reactions and interactions from the party that were uniquely Lune, or uniquely Mael, or uniquely Minoko. Everything after Act 1 narratively is still very good, thematically very intricate and thoughtful, with plenty of twists and turns that I didn't see coming. But I was just so taken by the incredible character moments in the first act that by comparison, the rest of the game was kind of disappointing. I know a lot of people don't feel this way, and I don't even disagree with their takes. Again, I would not say anything about the narrative is bad by any stretch of the imagination. It just isn't what I thought it would be based on that incredible first act. However, the thing that I would say is the biggest blemish on Expedition 33 is its visuals. I briefly referenced earlier the incredible art design that the game has, and it's true. The game continually shocked me with its gorgeous vistas and locales, as well as the enemy and character design. But the issue in question has less to do with the art itself and more to do with the engine, Unreal Engine 5. Having seen a number of games in recent years released on Unreal 5 or even Unreal 4, like with the Final Fantasy VII Remake series, I've become pretty familiar with the hallmarks of the Unreal Engine, and I found myself noticing them consistently throughout my time with Expedition 33. And it just kind of took away from the uniqueness of the game because it shares this visual DNA with all of these other games that I've seen. And I don't necessarily blame Sandfall for using the Unreal Engine. I see it more as just an unfortunate reality. Realistically, I wouldn't expect a team like this to develop their own engine on top of creating a new IP and developing an RPG of this scale. But this was the one aspect of the game that felt kind of amateurish or unpolished, especially with things like ghosting, weird depth of field stuff, and the game struggling to keep a decent frame rate at times. Fortunately, it was never more than a minor annoyance because the art design is just so good. So Expedition 33 has been getting some serious praise from outlets and players everywhere, and deservedly so. I may not have loved the story as much as I'd hoped, but I absolutely loved the gameplay, and I think it really is a once-in-a-generation title. So if you somehow haven't played this game yet, please do. You'll be doing yourself a favor. So there are a number of interpretations of the phrase clair-obscur, and I'm certainly no expert on French culture, but the most intriguing one I found is that it's a French translation of chiaroscuro, a contrasting art style that focuses on light and darkness, which seems pretty thematically relevant. Thanks for watching. I'm going to ask you to click some things now. The like button for one. The subscribe button is also pretty good. That'll let you know when I've posted new stuff. You can also click the link to my Patreon page or the join button below to support me and get some fun bonuses. Lastly, I'll ask you to share this video with a friend. That's really helpful for me. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.